Well, let's start with some background information about the oboe. So the oboe has a conical shape, which means it's kind of shaped like a cone, up and down. And the oboe plays with a double reed, which is different than a single reed. So a double reed means that there's two reeds that are pushed together. This is the clarinet reed, which is a single reed, which you can see it's different than the oboe reed by like size, and then it's like one reed and this is two pushed together to like form the oboe reed shape. And then the way that the reed works is when the reed vibrates, you get a sound from the reed. And then the oboe is in concert pitch. So when the oboe plays an A, it's a concert A. And then the oboe generally tunes bands and orchestras because their pitch is more reliable and it helps form a steady pitch for the orchestra to tune to. Okay, the first thing you do to play the oboe is put the oboe together. And there's three parts to the oboe. There's the bell, there is the lower joint, and then there is also the top joint. So the first piece you want to put together is the bell and the lower joint. This oboe has two holes on the side of it, and you want to kind of match this key up in between the two. I'm going to push the two, kind of put them together so it's in the middle and you have the holes on the side. And then when you connect the top joint and the lower joint, you want to watch the two bridge keys on the side and get them lined up together. And be careful so you don't like knock one off or mess up the corks. We're going to push them together. And then you can see that it's like lined up on the sides here and on the other side over here. And then you have your reed that you'll put into the top of the oboe and you'll push it all the way down so that and then make sure everything's lined up together and then your oboe's put together. Next, I'm going to talk about hand position and posture on the oboe. So first, with hand position, you're going to have your right hand at the lower joint of the oboe and your left hand at the upper joint. And then your left thumb is going to be behind the octave key. And then with your left hand, you're going to have your first three fingers go over these first three tone holes. So you'll have 1, 2, and 3. And then your pinky finger will go over this like little like section of keys here. And then on your right hand, you'll have, again, your first three fingers going over this circle, this one, and this one. So you have 1, 2, 3. And then your pinky can go over this kind of section of keys off to the side. And then it's important that you have your feet flat on the ground and you sit up nice and tall and that you bring the instrument up to you and it's kind of at an angle. It's not like you're playing the instrument up and down. It's kind of bring it up to you and then you can work on forming an embouchure so we can play the instrument. And one other thing to keep in mind with hand position on the oboe is to keep your hands curved in and then also to make sure you try to keep your fingers close when you're playing so your fingers don't get too far away from the keys, which will help with dexterity and longer passages. So when you're first learning to play the oboe, we can start by playing just on the reed. So first you want to make sure you soak your oboe reed so that it's all wet and so that it doesn't dry out. And then you want to soak up the water and stuff, like soak it in so it's not in the reed. And then, so first we'll start by just playing on the reed. And we can start with like an ooh shape in our lips and just try to blow through it and get the sound. And one other thing when you play an oboe reed is just like it is double lip, so like you'll have a lip on the top, lip on the bottom. And if you're struggling to make a sound, we can blow with your tongue on the reed and then release, which will make it easier to make that sound. So if we go back to what we were doing with the ooh or e shape in our lips, so an ooh, the ooh, kind of get that sound. And you can bend your lips to kind of mess with the pitch. So kind of mess with that pitch on the reed. And then with articulations, you're going to touch your tongue to the reed. So we can start with quarter notes. So when you get better at quarter notes, we can move on to eighth notes. And that works with like articulations and making sound on the oboe reed. And then once you can make a sound on just the oboe reed, we can attach the oboe reed to the oboe and you'll put it in the circle at the top and you want to make sure you push it all the way down. And you can line it up in the back so that the reed is like lined up with this octave key down here. Next, we can talk about looking at a fingering chart and some of the common fingerings. So when you look at a fingering chart, you'll have like the 1, 2, 3, like the circles on the left hand, and you'll have the octave key in the back, the first octave key. Then also on the left hand, up here you'll see the second octave key, and you're also gonna have the half hole down here. And then also on your left hand, there's gonna be these keys that you hit with your pinky. And then on your right hand, when you're looking at a fingering chart, you'll have the circles down here, so 1, 2, and 3. And then following it is this little like quadrant here with the 3 keys. And there's also this little fourth key that you can use when you're playing F. And you'll see these notes in the fingering charts. Next, I'm going to talk about how to play a descending C major scale. So we're going to start on C, which is 1 over 1. So 1 on your left hand, your first finger, and 1 on your right hand with your first finger. And then you're going to lift this finger up on your right hand, and you'll be at B. Then if you add the second finger in your left hand, you'll have an A. And then you add the third finger, you'll have a G. So if we start with that bar, we'll have... So we had C, B, A, G. And then we're going to go to F, which is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And this little side key down here, this little fourth key, is how you're going to play F. So you'll have G down to F. And then if you lift up this fourth key on your third finger, you'll be at E. And then if you add the third finger down here, you'll have D. And then to get to C, you're going to use this first key right here that's closest to your finger. So you'll have C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Let's see. There's the half hole, the first octave key, and the second octave key for the oboe. So first we'll talk about the half hole, which is on your left hand. It's right here. So you'll just slide your first finger down to open up this hole to make a half hole. You'll use this for C sharp, D, and E flat. So if we use the example of the note D, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So if you play a low D, you have this finger covered, and then you just slide your finger down, you'll use the half hole. So and then after the half hole key, for some of the higher notes starting on E, you'll have this first octave key in the back that you can use for the notes starting on E. And then when you get even higher, when you get to A, you'll use this second octave key that's on the side here to play notes A and higher. You just hit it on the side of your hand. And when you're approaching high notes on the oboe, make sure you're using enough air and that you're not changing your embouchure. As long as you're using a steady airflow and a good embouchure, you should have no trouble hitting up the higher notes. So lastly, when it comes to taking apart the oboe, first we'll start with taking the reed off. So you'll take the reed off the oboe, and then you want to put your oboe reed into your case. If you want to, you can suck the spit out of the reed. Kind of make sure you keep it dry, keep it clean. And then when you put it in your case, you want the oboe reed at the top piece. You want to push it in. Make sure it's secure in your case so that it doesn't fall out. And then shut your case. So then after you've handled your reed, we can go ahead and swab out the oboe. So you'll want to use a swab. And then if your swab has a weighted end like this one does, you want to put it in first. So you'll start at the bottom of the oboe with your swab and have it go all the way through the oboe. And then you can just pull it out. And then after you do that, we'll take apart the oboe. So we'll start with taking apart the top and the lower joint, and be careful of like the bridge keys in the middle. So when you take apart the top joint, we'll put it away in our case. And then we'll take apart the lower joint from the bell, and we'll set it in the case. Let's see. And then lastly, this is the oboe in the case put together. So you have the bell, your lower joint, your top joint, then your swab. And you want to make sure everything's put away secure in your case, keep your instrument safe.